far beyond the familiar boundaries of civilization, where the endless expanses of ice and snow merge with the horizon and the aurora borealis dances in the heavens. For many centuries, the North was imagined as a lifeless wasteland. To most, it was merely the end of the habitable world, a place where only the hardiest beast could survive. However, the history hidden beneath millennia of ice and layers of earth tells a different truth. The Arctic, contrary to popular belief, was not only an arena for survival, but also the cradle of vibrant, surprisingly complex cultures, whose achievements at times border on the phenomenal, especially considering the harshness of the environment. The gaps in our knowledge of them are not so much a conspiracy as the natural consequences of the passage of time. Many ancient coastlines are now hidden underwater, and the colossal work of archaeologists in exploring these territories is far from complete. Who were these fearless pioneers who dared to challenge the Arctic? The earliest evidence of a human presence beyond the Arctic Circle is staggering. At the Yana site in Yakutia, at 71 degrees north latitude, archaeologists discovered traces of life dating back an incredible 27,000 to 32,000 years. Long before people in other parts of the world were just beginning to explore new horizons, here, at the edge of the world, ancient hunters were already using tools made from mammoth bone, engaging in hunting, and leaving behind the baby teeth of children, from which a unique genetic branch was identified, the ancient North Siberians. This discovery pushed back the known dates of the earliest settlement of the Arctic by twofold, showing that humans are capable of adapting to the most extreme conditions if they possess the will to live in ingenuity. A little later, about 9,500 to 8,000 years ago, a scene unfolded on the remote Zhukov Island in the New Siberian Islands that testified to incredible development. Here, the oldest signs of sled dogs were found, and what is particularly surprising, evidence of purposeful breeding. These animals were not just companions, they were part of a complex transportation system adapted for different purposes. Some were likely used for long journeys and heavy loads, others for hunting. But that was not all. Among the finds was obsidian, a volcanic glass valued for its sharpness, but not found in this region. Analysis showed that it came from sources near Lake Kresnoy in Chukotka, a distance of almost 1,500 kilometers. Such a long trade chain, connecting distant lands across frozen seas and snowy deserts, speaks of developed communications, complex logistics, and the ability to navigate the vast Arctic expanses, which was tantamount to a high art of engineering for that time. The late Paleo Eskimos, known as the Dorset culture, from approximately 800 before Christ to 1300 Anno Domini, thrived in the Arctic, leaving behind unique longhouses, communal dwellings capable of housing entire communities, as well as a distinctive set of tools and artifacts that testify to a deep understanding of the environment. They were succeeded by the marine hunters of the Thule culture, the direct ancestors of the modern Inuit, whose era began around the year 1000 Anno Domini. The Thule culture became the pinnacle of Arctic adaptation. They built large winter houses from sod, stones, and whale bones, and created the famous kayaks and umiaks, highly efficient boats that allowed them to hunt marine mammals in open waters. Their settlements stretched across the entire Arctic, from Alaska to Greenland, forming a sprawling network that demonstrated not only mastery in shipbuilding and architecture, but also the capacity for large-scale organization and expansion in harsh conditions. Between the 10th and 15th centuries, Anno Domini, the Arctic witnessed an amazing intersection of cultures. Here, on the shores of Greenland, European colonies of the Norse were established. These settlements, which existed for centuries, were outposts of European civilization in the icy wilderness. However, their history ended in complete disappearance, and this was not the result of a sudden cataclysm, but rather a complex of interconnected causes. The onset of the Little Ice Age led to a cooling climate, which made agriculture and navigation more difficult. Growing isolation from Europe, a decline in demand for walrus ivory, the colony's key export, and general ecological pressure all played a role. The disappearance of the Norse colonies in Greenland is not a mystical secret, but a sad yet instructive example of the vulnerability of human societies on the Arctic periphery, a reminder that even a developed civilization can fall victim to climate change and global economic shifts. For centuries, the Arctic has been fertile ground for myths and legends. Ancient authors, who had no real understanding of the North Pole, placed there the mysterious lands of Hyperborea and Thule, territories beyond the North Wind, inhabited by mythical peoples. These beautiful but entirely mythological ideas have nothing in common with archaeological discoveries. In the 19th century, Sannikov Land emerged, a phantom landmass to the northeast of the new Siberian islands. Seafarers and hunters reported seeing it, and for decades, numerous expeditions set out in search of it, many with tragic outcomes. Most likely, it was either a mirage caused by optical phenomena in the atmosphere, or temporary ice formations or sandbars that were later destroyed by ice and disappeared. No permanent land was ever found there. Even Mercator's famous 1595 map, depicting the North Pole surrounded by 4 islands and a giant whirlpool, was more a reflection of medieval geographical concepts and speculations than actual cartography. It was a beautiful idea that became entrenched in atlases, but further exploration and navigation definitively dispelled these fantasies. What does the objective data say? Science versus secrets. If a hidden industrial civilization had ever existed in the Arctic, one that smelted metals or burned fuel on a scale comparable to the ancient Roman Empire or medieval Europe, we would see its traces. Thanks to modern scientific methods, such as the analysis of Greenland's ice cores, a kind of chronicle of climate and atmosphere formed from layers of snow that compact into ice, we can look thousands of years into the past. In these cores, scientists find characteristic signals of pollution. For example, traces of lead from the mines of Carthage and Rome, or spikes from the Industrial Revolution. But there are no extra spikes that would indicate an unknown advanced civilization in the Arctic during the late Holocene, the last 10 to 12,000 years. It is also important to remember the dynamics of the Earth's surface. After the last ice age, the world's ocean level rose by approximately 120 meters. This means that vast areas of the Arctic shelves, including the extensive Beringia, went underwater. It is quite likely that ancient sites, seasonal exchange centers, and even large settlements could have been located there, which we simply have not yet discovered. This is a logical, earthly explanation for the gaps in the archaeological record, not evidence of conspiracy. There were warm phases in the history of the Arctic, for example, the Holocene climatic optimum, approximately 9,000 to 6,000 years ago, when the climate was milder and forest boundaries shifted northward. This certainly made life easier for ancient people, but it is not a basis for hypotheses about a hidden industrial civilization. The true civilizational greatness of the ancient Arctic cultures is revealed in their amazing adaptability and ingenuity. First, an exchange network spanning thousands of kilometers. The example of obsidian from Chukotka on Jokhov Island is not just a find, but evidence of developed logistics, an understanding of seasonal routes, a system of exchange, and probably even rules of trade that existed as early as 8,000 to 9,000 years ago. This speaks to a complex social organization and long-distance contacts. Second, transportation technologies. Sled dogs, harnesses, and sled routes became the key to mastering the Arctic. This is not just a method of movement, but a highly developed technology that allows for covering vast distances, transporting goods, and maintaining communication between remote settlements. Their invention and refinement are one of the oldest and most important achievements of the Arctic peoples. Third, architecture and communal structures. The longhouses of the Dorset culture, the large winter houses of the Thule culture, these are not just dwellings. They are large, complex collective structures that served as centers for gatherings, exchange, rituals, and community life. They testify to the existence of a developed social structure and the capacity for collective labor. Thus, the history of the Arctic is not a story of mythical empires and conspiracies, but a chronicle of incredible human resilience, ingenuity, and a profound understanding of the natural world. It is the story of people who, without marble forms or iron legions, built their cities from snow, sod, and whalebones, created complex systems of exchange, domesticated dogs for long journeys, and developed technologies that allowed them to survive in some of the harshest conditions on the planet. Their achievements, though not always monumental in the sense we are accustomed to, became the foundation for modern Arctic peoples and serve as a powerful reminder of the boundless potential of the human spirit, capable not just of adapting, but of thriving where others see only the end of the world. This was one of the great, yet often forgotten lessons that the barbarians of the North taught the rest of the world.